Hey folks, Backwater Jay here. Welcome back to the workbench / table of J Mutations. Many of you may have seen the video, the unboxing of this guitar. If not, you can find that right up here. A whole bunch of cool stuff came with this guitar. Long story short, it was a deal pitched to me by my buddy from over in Massachusetts, and I just couldn't pass up on it. I saw this thing in the pictures and I'm like, this is going to be the next J Mutations project. So this is briefly a Greg Bennett SG copy. It is the Tira TR2. Not quite copy, but close enough. It's a good quality instrument, although they're not the most expensive in the world. They do have a quote maple top underneath all this paint that was done incidentally by an auto body shop. And we'll be hearing more on that later. Got good Grover tuners on here. I got Duncan Design HB103s, which are the Duncan distortions made in Indonesia, I believe. And because it was put together by a body shop after having been taken apart to paint, stuff got put on there backwards, quite a bit of stuff. The switch got put on backwards, bridge pickup got put on backwards. I fixed the switch when I was doing my exploratory surgery. The pots are quite fascinating. Currently what we have right now here is neck volume, bridge tone, and neck tone. So it's like a little X pattern that's nothing to do with the standard SG arrangement. I'm going to fix that when I do my electronics work. That is not going to happen today because I have parts on order for that, and also because I want to start on the more challenging bit. But before I do that, I'm going to take my strings off, because the first thing I want to do is actually one of the easier bits. Swap this bridge pickup back around because it's bugging me. Not that it really sounds any different, but it just looks weird. Incidentally, if you want to see some of my other project guitars, I will go ahead and put a link to one of my other videos up here. Because this is kind of a hobby / passion of mine. I haven't gotten paid for it yet, but I am going to be selling in some fashion one of my older creations, a Court Les Paul that I've modded out. So I will be updating you on that as the details come in. I need to do a little cleanup and figure out how I'm going to sell it. Great guitar, it's been with me many years, but I need to make room. So it's going to go, because this is basically more or less duplicating what it does. So now this, with the strings off, once this one is, last one is off here, this will give me a chance to do a little more thorough inspection of the instrument and also do a little bit of cleaning. Clean it off pretty good as you can do without, there goes our tailpiece. That's a nice solid, unbranded. I'm guessing from the weight of this is probably an aluminum tailpiece. Could be steel. Not sure. Not sure what the spec is on that. And then of course our bridge is going to lift off the same way, because that's how Gibson style hardware is designed. Some of the newer ones, I think the Firebird that I have actually has ones that lock onto the posts. But of course there's nothing fancy on this one. We've got bushings stick up a little bit. The paint looks good around the bushings on all these guys. I'm going to more or less leave those posts where they're at, because that was a comfortable height for me. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these strings, and then I am going to, the bridge incidentally is a Sungil made in Korea, it looks like. So this is probably a Korean instrument, although it could have conceivably just used Korean hardware. It is made by Samick, which is a fairly reputable name in the biz. Nice high visibility cloth. So you know what a subtle guy I am. But I'm messing with those posts now. Oh well. So we'll just clean off all this area underneath the strings here, especially the headstock. Headstocks are tough to clean with the strings on. Oh, that shines up nice and pretty there. I should have shown you the before. You can see the before in the other video, but this is the after on the headstock there. So there are a few blemishes in this paint job, either blemishes or chips, but overall I'm pleased with it. They're not something that's going to bug me. And matter of fact, I will be fixing what blemishes that I can fix in one of the later stages. I'm not going to do that right now. What I am going to do right now is go ahead and take this back pickup off, ring and all, because the ring got swapped around. Not surprisingly, that's the easy way to take these things off and put them on. I'm making use, incidentally, of one of the little fender tins that came with this as a screw holder. Always have a screw holder, folks. Whatever project you're working on. If it has screws, get a screw holder. Not crazy about this new screwdriver. I picked it up because I needed something small in Phillips and I wasn't finding any. But it's a little weird. So we'll take this pickup off. And see what we see inside for one thing, because this is going to be interesting. I mean, I know what the specs on this are, but of course I haven't seen. The cavities are more or less painted over here. Although from the looks of it, this may actually be a solid mahogany instrument. I'm not entirely positive on that, but it looks more like mahogany than maple up top, so maybe this is less of a tragedy than I thought. The interesting thing is, though, that the Torinos that I've seen with this style of fingerboard, with the binding and the trapezoid inlays on them, they have all been the quilt maple tops. So possibly this could be something unusual, or maybe just a different year. But, you know, considering the way the guitar is painted, you know, it sounds good, so I'm not going to fuss about the lack of maple that nobody's going to see. Good to know if I ever decide to refinish this, which is, you know, hell's going to be freezing over. But there does appear to be overall some good shielding on the inside of this instrument. If I can line this up correctly, there we go. I always try to get the screws started on stuff like this before I finish them. And I kind of just do an X pattern, because things seem to line better that way. Because if you get one screw in and the whole thing's crooked, you may just have to take it all out again anyways. So, you have one short screw here, so I'm going to put it in one of the slightly shorter holes. Looks 100% better, at least if you're as anal as I am about these things. Now we're getting into the meat of the stage of the mutation. So I am going to go ahead and remove all my plastics, by which I mean my pick guard, my whatever you call this neck tenon cover thing, and my truss rod cover, because I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with this. I know, big shocker. Curious to see what's under this plate, if we've actually got a trench here or if it's just all the wires routed. Probably the wires are routed internally, which will give people more options for, you know, modding these things out if they want to completely remove guards or whatever. Which, why would you want to remove this guard? Unless you're doing something weird like I am. Okay, it's stuck a little bit to the paint. Got a faint bit of an outline there, but yeah, good solid black finish underneath there, which is good for my purposes. So that's that. We'll set that aside. Nice little 3-ply guard there. Looks like it is aged a bit. It's aged differently than the pickup covers in the rhythm treble ring, which is somewhat odd. But if they're getting replaced, that's not going to bug me. Then we're going to take this little tenon cover off. I'm kind of curious what's underneath here. Okay, so we have a little divot in the wood that looks like it's maybe part of the neck tenon going in. I don't know if y'all can see that. But there's a little, looks like a little gap around the edge where they kind of glued in but didn't glue it perfectly. It's okay. You don't expect perfection from these people. Here's my other screwdriver. I'll go ahead and take this neck pickup off. Explore that a little further. So I'm just curious what I can see as far as neck tenon goes in this instrument, because the setup on them is a little bit different than your standard SG. Again, I'm seeing lots of mahogany color on the top there, so I think this is solid mahogany. But we do have a neck tenon going into the pickup cavity. It's all painted over. I don't know if you can see the join there. I'm gonna get as close as I can to the camera. But yeah, that probably didn't come through, but I feel better having at least made the attempt. So it is kind of a long neck tenon on this, which I think is supposed to be a good thing. I'm not a super big classic Gibson guy, but people go on about them strongly. So we're going to put this back on. So I'm done messing with pickups for today. Didn't think I was going to mess with this one, but you know, it was there. Alright, so that's it for this. I'm going to set it aside. I'll probably restring it in the interim because I actually don't need the strings off to do what I'm doing with the plastic. Oh, I need to take this one off. I don't need the strings off to do what I'm doing with the plastics. Now we can finish taking this truss rod cover off. This is a different color than the other plastics, and it's a single ply. Feels like a different kind of plastic, actually. It's got a kind of almost textured upper surface there. It says Torino. The Greg Bennett branding is buried on the headstock, as is that they have a little S up here in this weird little curve area. So that said, we'll seal up our screws here for later. And then we will move on to the next bit. Okay, so now what am I going to be replacing these plastics with, you may be wondering. Well, I have kind of had a hankering to work with textured acrylic, and so what I have here is a piece of frosted acrylic. It's about, say, 1/8 of an inch thick, give or take. This came out of the scrap bin at Tat Plastics. It cost me probably less than $1 for this whole sheet. So if you're looking for pickguard material that's unusual, Tat Plastics is the place to go. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basically trace out my pickup shapes onto this using a little wet erase marker, which will come off pretty easily if I happen to leave any on the edges of either piece, because I do want to hold on to the old guards in case they end up being useful for something. I'm just going to trace around this whole thing. And hope that I get a good enough line that I can follow it. Poke down through these screw holes. It's appropriate enough that I'm using these wet erase markers for this project, because these were picked up originally for use with a D&D battle mat. And this is going to be a D&D themed guitar. I haven't told you much about Tira, but basically it is a kind of homage to Eberron. One of the churches that they had in that campaign setting is the Church of the Silver Flame. And the founder of that, not to get too long into the backstory here, founder of that church was a paladin named Tira Marone. Let's see how that came across. That came across pretty good. Got all my keyholes, my, not keyholes, screw holes. I'm gonna just X these out so they're a little more clear. All right, so that's a pretty good pattern there. I don't know if you can see it. One thing working with these frosted surfaces is they are a little tricky to see on. Oh, just to give you an idea what this would look as is on the black body there. Kind of creates a unique kind of wave ripple sort of effect. But I'm not done there. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this piece out as well. If anybody knows what this is called, puts it in the comments below, then you get bragging rights. And I'm, as much as possible, where these things have flat edges, putting them against an actual flat edge of the plastic, because that way there's just less stuff I have to straighten by hand, which is kind of a pain to do. Now this one, this is going to be the tricky bit, because I am actually making this one a little bit different shape, which means I may be plugging up some holes and stuff on the guitar, but I'm going to actually grab my reference here, because I decided there was a very coincidental, maybe too big to be coincidental, similarity between this truss rod cover, this little thing here, and the symbol of the Church of the Silver Flame. So I'm going to try to replicate this shape and see what happens. A little spearhead narrows down the bottom there. I can't go too narrow because, of course, I've got a route in the guitar there that I still want to keep covered up. But I'm going to go ahead and, using this as a base here, I'm going to go ahead and try to freehand it. So let me draw myself a relatively perpendicular line off of the... And then I think maybe if I start, I'm just going to trace this shape right about there. Okay, so let's mark out my 1/2 inch minimum here. Can't go inside of those lines. This is not going to be exact, like bleeding edge computer accurate here, but well, let me mark out screw hole. I'm going to give it a little more space here with the screw holes. So do one about there, and then we'll do one about there, and one about there. Give or take. I don't have to be exact with these things because I'm going to be basically drilling out the guitar for these holes because they're nowhere near where the original ones are. But so there is my truss rod cover, blank. Next step is going to be to drill these out and cut them out. All right, so the first time I've tried doing it this way, I have a number 6 countersink, which I think is going to be the right size for these screws that I have. However, I'm not 100% confident in that, so I'm actually going to do a test hole here. Lagunitas box, hashtag non-spawn, but seriously, you can sponsor me anytime you want to. So far proven pretty easy to work with. Now I'm going to try the screw in there. And the screw, maybe just the tiniest bit tight. I may need to go to the next one up. So let me try. I did pick up a set of these because I was not sure exactly what would fit. I'll try swapping that out and using the next one up. And if this is too loose, then I've got a solution. It's just not my preferred solution. So I'm just going to right next to this other one I drilled, because again, I'm partly testing resilience of the material here. That's looking a little more like it. Let me try one of these screws in here and see how it fits. Oh, like a glove. You go a bit deeper with those, I think, but I'm on the right track. So, that said, I'm going to start drilling out the holes that I have, and hopefully I'm not wiping too much of this off, because I did wipe some of that off. I always like to drill these things before I actually shape them, because in the corners, when you're shaping plastic, when you've got already shaped plastic, dealing with corners, You could very well just shatter things by drilling into it after it's already shaped. Okay, that looks pretty centered. Let's check for depth there. Looks pretty good. Okay. So we'll just do that a bunch more times here. Okay, that one's drilled out. Now let's work on these other ones. I can breathe a little easier now because if I mess up the lines on these other ones, I can just go back and retrace. The other one would have to be done by hand. Alright, so those are drilled out. Now it's time to cut them to shape. Okay, so unfortunately, during my experiments with cutting this stuff, I have had a little setback. The bane of my existence is apparently plastic cracking. So it's apparent to me that neither the saws that I have will work, and the sander that I have also is not going to work. But I'm going with the fire theme with this instrument, and I've done this before on the Warlord. Yeah. So we're going to try burning these things out. So let me turn this down so that you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to start on, I'm just going to go nice and slow on this. The slower I found is smoother. And hopefully this will create some really cool edges that will kind of fit with the Silver Flame theme. You're going to hear a little more noise here because I've got my fan going because I don't want to freaking fume myself out with this. This is probably going to get fast forwarded a lot. I even keep this bit in here. See how close I am. Pretty close. Yeah, this may be my preferred signature pickguard manufacture process now. We'll see how the end product comes out. That's more or less through, so let's go ahead and just try to break that off. Here we go. It's left me a kind of gooey edge, but that's actually kind of cool. I think it fits with the fire theme there. We're going to wait till these are dry, and then I'm going to basically break all this flash off, but I'll probably start doing that now. And this actually just chips off pretty easily with the fingernail. Although, I'm going to save my nails and actually go after this with the X-Acto knife. The non-branded hobby knife, I should say. Okay, I'm just going to test that little piece for fit. Yeah, so that works. I'm just going to basically try to give this a little bit of a smooth out the edges here. This is only territory to me, so it's kind of fascinating. Like heat sanding, basically. Okay, I think that's workable. So now, the bit that's giving me the most grief, let's cut this nice little Silver Flame out. I'm going to actually try to do a bit of an inward bevel on this. Alright. That one is a little warm. Oh, I'm pretty pleased with that. Let's start cleaning this up and see what we got. Actually, now let's clean that up after. Let that get nice and cool first. Now I'm going to start on this. We want those lines to be nice and straight so that it fits flush. So let me try knocking some stuff off of this neck piece now that it's relatively cool. Oh yeah, that's coming out neat. I'll show you this in a second. It's definitely like a hand-worked edge on this. Something that isn't going to come out of a factory this way, but honestly, I kind of like that. Okay, so there's the rough on that. Try to bevel this down a little bit. Just trying to even out some edges here. Because this piece is symmetrical, it's turned out to be the toughest to do. One side always wants to go a little lopsided on me. I'm just check this one for fit. And I cut it close on the waist here. I'm gonna have to be a little careful lining that one up when I put it on so that it covers everything. But that one we've knocked out. Now let's come back to my actual pick guard here. Gotta be a little mindful of what direction my bevels are going in here. I'm just doing a complete eyeball on this. I do not recommend this for beginners. Okay, how close are we getting here? Still got a ways to go. It's okay, I knew this was going to be the most time-consuming piece. Whew. Almost an hour on this now. All right, that's melted out. Leave my iron on for a second, because again I'm going to clean this up and probably melt some edges. Alright, so there's my guard. So I'm going to get started on my attempts to paint this stuff. I'm just basically drawing in some flame patterns here. I'm drawing these in on the top surfaces incidentally, so that they don't mess with my painting on the bottom surfaces. I may just leave that like that for the sake of clutter. Maybe close up the back of that. Okay. So there's going to be my J mutations. So I'm going to trace through from the other side. This will become a lot more visible with actual color in against the background. I've gone ahead and traced where the flame hits the spit guard here. So next time I'm going to go ahead and do my pick guard graphic. My Tira here. I'm going to put, I think, a few more little licks of flame up in here. Alright, so that said, got these more or less marked where I want to do them. So I'm going to start with this guy. That's going to be the most forgiving. I'm not going to stay exactly inside of these lines that I've marked. I'm just going to use them as guidelines. With that set up. Alright, so now this stuff is more or less dry. I'm going to move on to the next layer here, which I'm moving to the model paint now. So, again, starting with the neck doodad. Those lines are going to come off, so things are going to look a little smoother. I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and erase my lines and see what I've got from this side. There we go. Starting to look fiery. That one I already got. This one. Okay, make up the Tira there. Okay, so next color we're going to mix here. Just go. Hopefully I don't need too much of this because I'm just going around the edges with it, but I'm going to make a good deal of it. It's Durasheet alloy. I'm going to mix in a little bit of teal color here. Yeah, I think that'll work pretty well. So there's the completed Tira graphic. Well, kind of completed. A couple more steps. All right, close to final step here. Breaking out the big guns for the background. So I've got one more step before these go onto the guitar. Actually, a couple more steps. One more step that involves the actual plastics, and that is that. So I've got these where they've got a nice multicolor pattern on them. I want to protect that pattern. So while the front is obviously just, you know, normal plastic, the back is going to need to be protected. So we're going to clear coat it a little bit. We'll do several coats of this, but I'm not going to film them all. So finally there is the issue of these holes that are in the headstock for the truss rod cover that are going to be visible with the new one. So I am going to fill them in. I'll be painting them over once I get the right paint, but I'm going to be using a 2-part epoxy putty basically. I can get a clean chunk of it. This is something I use all the time for modeling. It's, you know, not going to create a super structurally strong filler, but it is going to create a filler. And actually, it's reasonably strong. We'll take this and beat it together until it's basically a uniform green color. Let's call that green. I'm going to rip up a little piece and twirl it around and try basically jamming this into the hole. Just jam it in there as far as it'll go. I'm going to attempt to create myself a smooth surface here. And that should work pretty good. And I'm going to do that with the other hole. And then once I get some paint on there, that should be a pretty smooth join. Maybe not perfect because I've never tried this for this application, but it should be good enough, I think. Again, just jam that in there as best I can. So now what I've done, pulled those holes up nice. They've got these green dots in them, but it's a fairly flush surface that I should be able to just paint over when I get the paint to do so. So beyond that, we're just gonna wait for stuff to dry and put it back on and maybe restring this thing until it's time for the next phase of the transformation.